Hello and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to explore the absolute fundamentals of marketing. We'll be focusing specifically on two massive engines that really drive our economy, the consumer market and the business market. So, get comfortable and let's start this learning journey together. Here is our roadmap for today. First, introduction and definitions. Second, the consumer buying decision process. Third, the business buying decision process. Fourth, comparing market characteristics. And finally, we'll wrap up with a final review and questions. All right, Section 1, Introduction and Definitions. Let's set the stage. So what exactly is the consumer market? Well, it consists of all the individuals and households who buy or acquire goods and services for personal consumption. The really crucial phrases to remember here are individuals and personal consumption. Basically, this means everyday people, like you and me, buying things for ourselves or our families to actually use. Now, let's flip that and look at the business market. This market includes all organizations that buy goods and services for use in production or to resell and rent at a profit. Notice the big contrast here. The keywords are organizations, production, and profit. This isn't about buying a sweater to wear. It is strictly for making other goods or generating revenue. You can really see the visual contrast between these two worlds. On one side, you have everyday people happily shopping for themselves. That's our consumer market. And on the other, you have professionals working together in a much more structured, geared system representing the business market. It's a completely different vibe, right? Let's take a second to make this real. Think about your last personal purchase. Maybe you bought a cup of coffee this morning or a new shirt online. Now, compare that simple action to what a massive hospital needs to buy, like millions of dollars worth of complex medical machines. How different are those two decisions? That brings us to Section 2, Consumer Buying Decision Process, the steps to purchase. For consumers like us, there are 5 main steps in the buying decision process. First, you have to recognize a problem or need. This could be something internal, like simply feeling hungry, or an external trigger, like seeing a really great TV ad for pizza. Second, you search for information. You might ask friends, check online reviews, or visit a store. Third, you evaluate alternative brands. You weigh the price, the quality, and the features to see which one fits best. Fourth is the actual buyer's decision, choosing exactly which brand to buy and when to buy it. And finally, the 5th step, taking further action after the purchase. Depending on how satisfied you are, you might buy it again next time, or you might switch to a totally different brand. Moving on to Section 3, Business Buying Decision Process. Let's look at organizational decisions. The business buying decision process is how business buyers figure out exactly which products and services their organizations need. Once they know what they need, they then have to find, evaluate, and choose among alternative suppliers and brands. At its core, it breaks down into determining needs, finding options, evaluating them, and finally making that big choice. Now, while a consumer basically has 5 steps, a business process is a bit more heavy-duty. It has 8 steps. Step 1, problem recognition. The company identifies a need, like realizing their current office computers are just way too slow. Step 2, general need description. They outline what they need in broad strokes, like we need fast computers with good storage. Step 3, product specification. This is where they get specific. They decide the exact requirements, say laptops with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte hard drive. Step 4, supplier search. The company actively hunts for reliable computer vendors. Step 5, proposal solicitation. They ask those different suppliers for formal quotations and details. Step 6, supplier selection. The company compares everyone based on price, quality, and reliability and picks the winner. Step 7, order routine specification. They place the actual order, locking in quantities, delivery dates, and warranties. And finally, Step 8, performance review. The company evaluates the supplier after the fact to see if they delivered on time and if the product actually holds up. Let's do a quick checkpoint. Why do you think a business requires 8 highly formal steps just to make a purchase, while a consumer might literally just see an ad on TV and buy something right then and there? Take a moment to think about the level of complexity, the risk, and the sheer amount of money involved for a business. Okay, let's bring it all together in Section 4, comparing market characteristics, B2B versus B2C. Before we dive into the direct comparison, let's just clarify 2 really common acronyms you'll hear a lot. B2B stands for business to business, and that represents the business market. B2C stands for business to consumer, representing the consumer market. Keeping these terms in mind will help as we look at the specific details next. Let's put these markets head to head. First up, market structure. Consumer markets have tons of buyers, but they buy in very small quantities. Think about buying groceries. Business markets, however, have fewer buyers overall, but they are huge and they buy in massive quantities. Second, let's look at demand. Consumer demand is quite elastic and very sensitive to price changes. If the price of a candy bar doubles, you probably won't buy it. Business demand is inelastic, tends to fluctuate more, and isn't affected much by simple price changes in the short term. Third, the nature of the buying unit. Consumer decisions involve just a few participants, usually yourself, family, or friends, and are often driven by emotional or social needs. Business decisions involve multiple participants across various professional levels. Fourth, the types of decision process. Consumer decisions are generally simple, short, and informal. Business decisions, they are much more complex, take a lot longer, and are heavily formalized. Continuing that comparison, let's check out the buyer-seller relationship. Consumers and sellers don't really depend on each other that much. It's a transactional, short-term relationship. Businesses, on the other hand, are highly dependent on each other, often building long-term strategic relationships. Next, channel characteristics. Consumers usually buy through indirect channels with multiple layers of middlemen, like buying a TV from a retail store, not the factory. Businesses use more direct channels, working directly with manufacturers. For promotional characteristics, consumer markets rely heavily on broad advertising. Business markets emphasize personal, one-on-one selling. And finally, product characteristics. Consumer products are typically less technical and highly standardized. Business products are often very technical and heavily customized for a company's specific, unique needs. And that brings us to Section 5, Final Review and Questions. Time to wrap things up. Thank you so much for your time and focus today. You've learned some really foundational concepts. I want to leave you with one final thought. Based on everything we just covered, which market's decision process do you personally find more fascinating, and why? I highly encourage you to pause this explainer right here, maybe review the steps and reflect on your own learning journey. Keep asking great questions, and I will see you next time.